we're Mizrahi crowds up to Yechesam at base, about 12 lines from the bottom where it says B'Shloima. I'll give you a quick summary where we're up, synopsis where we're up to. Basically, now we're discussing the issue of Eishes Ach Shaloi Haya B'Olamai. We're talking about one of the women that the brother cannot marry is if he wasn't around when Reuben died. And it's easy always to use Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda because we all are familiar with it. And sisters is Rachel and Leah. So what we had was a case where Reuben and Shimon, Reuben was married to someone, she died. And then either Levi was born right after Reuben died, which is the previous Mishnah, or the Mishnah we just learned right now is if Levi was born after Shimon married Reuben's wife. And Shimon, so we say that's called an Eishes Ach Shaloi Haya B'Olamai, and he cannot, Levi was born afterwards, he cannot marry Reuben's wife. And not only that, if Reuben's wife then got married to Shimon, and then Shimon dies, not only can't Levi marry Reuben's wife that's married to Shimon, he cannot even marry Shimon's own wife because she is the tzara, she's a co-wife of an Eishes Ach. That's the view of the Rabbanan. Reb Shimon in this Mishnah, in the case where Levi was born after Shimon married her, argues and says since when he came around, she was already Shimon's wife, she's no longer attached to Reuben. So then came along Rabbi Ashi and said that even though Reb Shimon is only discussing this particular case, he's arguing in both cases. In his eyes, even if Levi was born before Shimon married Reuben's wife, once Shimon married Reuben's wife, it's no longer Reuben's wife, it's Shimon's wife. And if a couple of years later Shimon passes away, then Levi can marry her. Okay, that's Rabbi Ashi's version. And we're up to the Gemara here trying to understand the logic of Rabbi Ishia. So quickly, I understand the logic if Shimon married her. Everyone has the place. We're about 12 lines to the bottom on Yud Chesed base. So Bishleim, it makes sense. Yibim va'achakach noiled. Shimon married her, and then Levi was born. I understand what Rav Shimon's logic is. In fact, the Gemara later on will say we don't understand the Rabban's logic. I understand. When Levi came to the world, he found Shimon's wife. He never found a Reuben's wife. He wasn't around when Reuben was married to her. I understand. But if Levi was born before he married Shimon, so when Levi was born, Reuben was dead and his wife was there, and they were forbidden to each other. My timer, what possible reason could have Shimon say that if Shimon married her a year later, that now it's become permitted to Levi? How? Says the Gemara, you know why? Because remember we learned the concept we had before, a whole argument between different Amoraim, Shmuel and Rav, whether we say Yesh Zika, is there a bond, as soon as Reuben dies, is there a natural bond between the Yevama and her brothers-in-law? So what Rabbi Isha is going to say, that as soon as Reuben died, that natural bond, I believe Yesh Zika, makes it as if in theory, she's already Shimon's wife. And therefore, it's as if Levi was born after Shimon married her. Reuben is out of the scene, out of the picture. My time, a wife, somebody holds Yezika. There's a bond, and the bond makes as if they're married. Says the Gemara, that comes along Rabbi Yosef and says, I don't understand. Master Rabbi Yosef, it can't be. We're discussing Rabbi Shimon, says Rabbi Yosef, and we know Rabbi Shimon not only doesn't believe in this bond, he goes further. He says, even if you made a bond and you went further, you made a mimer. What's a mimer again? Remember, there's the Torah. There's only one way of marrying a Yavam, and that's a biblical way, and through marital relations. Came along the Rabbanan and said, but if he issues a mimer, if he gives a kedushin like an ordinary wife, then with the Rabbanan there's some kind of attachment there. And in fact, with the Rabbanan he has to give her a get if he wants to sever that tie, and he separately has to give her chalitza because the get has nothing to do with chalitza. So Rab Shimon will have a question. I'm not even sure if you have that zika and the mimer whether it really ties the knot or not. So surely a zika on its own doesn't tie any knots. And don't tell me, says Rabbi Yosef, that it's as if she's already married to Shimon and therefore Levi was born after the marriage. It can't be. So what's the story? How do we know that? Says the Gemara, now zika mimer Shimon. Shimon's not even sure if we have a zika and a mimer, whether it bonds the two together. We're just going base toward the bottom. We're not even sure that's considered as if there's some kind of a marriage there. Is Zika l'chud? You're going to tell me that just the fact that Reuben died, there's that natural bond, that's enough to make it as if it's Shimon's wife, and therefore as if Levi was born after Shimon married her? Impossible. Now, what's the story? How do you know that Shimon is doubting it, or has this doubt? What's the story? Now, we learned in the Mishnah, Shloisha Achid, there were three brothers, Reuben, Shimon, Levi. The Suyin Sholosh Nashim Nachis. They were all married to three independent women. The Mace Echman, Reuben died. Someone at the shir today, Moshe Lander, said a very nice word. He said, how come by the Shvatim, the Yaakov, and he benched Reuben, he said, Reuben al Yamus, he should live and he shouldn't die. Why Punkt Reuben had that Moshe bench? Why Punkt Reuben had that bracha of al Yamus and the rest of the brothers didn't care about? It's because they knew that one day we were going to Yevamos. And everybody, when they're going to use examples of brothers, they're always going to say Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and it's always Reuben who's dying. So therefore, he gets killed 1,000 times when he went from Masechta Yevamos. That's why he said Yechi Reuben al Yamus. Shouldn't affect him. Good word. Anyway, so Shloisha Achim, 3 brothers in the Suyin, Shalosh Noshim Roch, were married to 3 women. The Meis Echaman and Reuben died. So what happened? Shimon went ahead with 3 brothers. Shimon went ahead and he proactively gave her kedushin. The Meis, and then Shimon dies. So now you have 2 women there in waiting for Levi. One of them is Shimon's wife. The other one is sort of Reuben's and Shimon's wife. Mahatayra is still Reuben's wife because he didn't marry Shimon. And Midrabanan, it's like Shimon's wife. So it's like an overlap of two men. How the is that they only get chalitza and they don't get yavam. Why not? Shenema, because it says in the pasuk, the meis echad mehem. If one of them died, yavam yavel. If one of them died, yavam should have relations. Mishalezi, because you're only if you had only one yavam tagged to her. And here this woman has tagged her 2 yavam, Reuben and Shimon, because she's halfway here and halfway there. So therefore, there's no. So therefore, you give chalitza and not yibum. Rab Shimon says, Rab Shimon says no. Rab Shimon says that he can marry either Shimon's wife or Reuven's wife. The Choyle is whichever one he marries, the other one has to give chalitza to. Now he explains, why can't he marry both of them? Because the Dilma, because he said, I don't know, that minor might have connected you to Shimon. And if it connected you to Shimon, then we have, you cannot marry 2 wives of one man. Is the Dilma, perhaps, somebody can mute themselves, please. The Dilma, perhaps, Yesh Zika, perhaps there's a connection to Shimon. So you have a case of 2 women that come from one man. You can't marry both of them because they both, both of them are connected to Shimon. So let's say both connected to Shimon marry one, the other one's automatically exempt. You can't do it either. No. The Dilma ain't Zika because maybe they're both not connected to Shimon. Maybe Reuven's wife is not connected to Shimon because Maimah does nothing. So one is Reuven's wife, one is Shimon. Each one needs independently their own Yibum or Chalitza. What do we see clearly from here? Alma Masapli, that what Shimon is not sure what Maimah does. So how can Abaishia say that as soon as Reuven dies, as if she's already married to Shimon, and therefore Levi was as if born after Shimon married her? Even Maimah doesn't achieve that. You're going to argue me, no. Maybe Mahatayra, Zika is automatic, and therefore it's Taka Shimon's wife. Mahatayra Shimon's wife, and therefore it's as if Levi is born afterwards. How come over here we say that you need chalitza from both women if it's Shimon's wife, all you need is one. But the Rabbanan the Rabbanan say, you know what? Even though it's really Shimon's wife, Reuven's wife really Shimon, but people don't know that. They just saw Reuven's wife because they didn't see them get married. All they saw was a minor, and or even just a zika, not even a minor, just a zika. The Rabbanan say, you know what? Since it's still Reuven's wife, they didn't really marry Shimon yet. People don't understand that, and we're worried that people are going to go around saying, they don't look at it that Shimon has 2 wives. They look at it that Shimon has a wife, and there's Reuven's wife in waiting. And therefore people think, well, if you have 2 women who are now waiting for a 3rd brother, all you need to do something with one, the other one is totally scot-free, even though it's coming from a different brother. One of them you married, then we let go. Therefore, that's why. Says the Gemara, it can't be. So Rabbi Yosef says it can't be because what time with Rabbi Shimon clearly says, he clearly says what's bothering him, not due to Rabbanan. What's bothering him is whether Maimah actually ties the knot between the 2. The Tanya says in the Braisa, Rabbi Shimon the Chachamim, if you can tell me that the fact that Shimon gave her kedushin makes it Shimon's wife, then Eisha Sheni Boil. Then all it is Shimon. It's Shimon's wife. So why can't he have a yibum then? And the imam Moresh Sheni ain't a maimer. If you can tell me that that the maimer doesn't do anything, he's still Reuben's wife. Again, what's wrong? Then a traditional boil. Then he's living with Reuben's wife. What's the problem? Why did he say no yibum here? So what we see clearly from here, Reb Shimon is not even sure whether the kedushin adds anything to it, ties or not. Surely Zeke alone doesn't. So my question goes back: what is the logic of Rabbi Ishia? What is the logic of Rabbi Ishia? That he says that even if Levi was born as soon as Reuben died, and then later on Shimon marries her, it's as if he was born after Shimon married her. What's the logic? Of course, Abai won't let Rabbi Yosef go. And Abai said to Rabbi Yosef, one second, he says to the Rebbe, I'm not so sure you're right. Your question is a very different case than Rabbi Yosef. You know why? In your case, there were 3 brothers, and in Rabbi Yosef's case, there were 2 brothers. And what's the difference? Big difference. When that 3 brothers, when Reuben died, how do you know who she's going to end up with? With Shimon or with Levi? So therefore, Rabbi Shimon says there's no bond. To who? But so that's why he says over here that she that is not really bonded to Shimon at all, and just with the Rabbanan you have to do something there. However, you have to do Hatayrik into Yibum because it's really Reuben's wife. However, in the case of Rabbi Ishia, we're talking about there were no other brothers. Reuben died, and then suddenly a brother was born. That brother Shimon, who was born, is the only one there. So because Reuben died, there was only Shimon's surviving brother. Levi was born afterwards. Since Shimon the moment Reuben died, there was only Shimon there. So who naturally is she going to be a Yevama to? To Shimon. So therefore, it's as if they were married. And then a month later, Levi was born. He was born afterwards. Even though they never married, their Zika is strong because there's nowhere else to go. So Rabbi says, isn't there a difference by Zika's Yavam Echad, but there's only one Yavam, then the Zika takes place? The Zika Shnei Yavam, and when there are 2 brothers, that doesn't take place. Dilma, perhaps, Rabbi explains this question. When do we use this logic that Zika is as if they're married already? He's talking about a case where there's only one surviving brother before Levi was born. The Yavam Echad is only one Yavam. And that's why we say, it's as if that's the case of Shimon is saying, but it's as if Levi was born after Shimon married her, even though he didn't, because he was the only brother alive. And therefore, but in the case over here, on top of the page, we had 3 brothers, and one of them died with 2 brothers remaining. At that time, there's no Zika to anyone. But there's no Zika. That's what Abaya asked Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef answers back, and these are the few occasions Rabbi Yosef actually repudiates Abaya. He says back to him, what are you talking about? Shimon, you think Rabbi Shimon holds there's a difference, one Yavam or 2? I'll show you that there's no difference. He doesn't believe in Zika in either one. Because the time you learn Klal, I'll give you a rule. Rabbi Shimon says, this is the rule. If Levi, let's say, was born before Shimon married her, that means that he was an Ashes Ach when Reuben was died. There's nothing between Levi and Reuben's wife. There's no connection whatsoever. There's no mitzvah Yibum, nothing, because he wasn't around when Reuben died. But if Nesuyin Kainu later, if he was born after Shimon married her, then it's Shimon's wife. So you go through the normal rituals of a Yibum. Now, my love, it's an open-ended statement. Isn't it clear? The Yavam Echad, even one, no difference if there's only one surviving brother, 2 surviving brothers. It seems clearly from here. There's no such thing as Zika. If he married her, if Lepoil married her, then Levi was born after the marriage. If he didn't marry her, it doesn't matter that he was the only brother. There was no marriage, and it's Ejazach. Uktani loicha let's so Abaye is still, being devil he said, no, maybe maybe she was talking about a case with the 2 brothers. That's why there's no bond between Reuben's wife and the brothers. So Rabbi said, no, so what do you think by one Yavam? Hachinami, right? You want to say that but if there only one brother, then there is a Zika there, and therefore it's as if Levi was born after Shimon married her. So oichi let's either Chalitza or Yibum. So let me ask you a question. Why does Rav Shimon then make a distinction? He's trying to draw a contrast. When it's permitted, when it's forbidden. And he makes a difference of before marriage and after marriage. Talk about before marriage and make a difference whether it's one brother or 2 brothers. If the marriage took place first and you were born afterwards, then it's like the Shimon's wife, you could go through the normal rituals. Isn't it a bigger chiddush? Live like the list a bit a day. Make the contrast by itself. When is it talking about B'shnei Yevamim? When is it the din if he was born before the marriage of the two brothers, so there's no tie to either one? If there's only one brother, then even though he didn't get married, as if she married Shimon because there's no one else to marry, and therefore Levi was born even before the marriage, as if he's born after the marriage. So Abaye says back, no. I can argue that Shimon is talking about two Yevamim, and that's why he makes a distinction between before marriage and after marriage, but he's not talking about only one brother. Says the Gemara, so Abaye says back to Abaye, you're wrong.
What's the difference between
klola? It means a rule. And now you tell me it's not even a rule because sometimes even before marriage, it depends. If it's one brother or two brothers, what kind of rule is that?
Hello?
It's clear, we're talking about you're giving an open-ended rule.
What's the difference?
If Levi was born before Shimon married, I don't care if he's the only brother. Shimon did not marry her. He's a H's Ach Shlahei B'Lamed. When does that Shimon argue?
Hello?
Only after, if he was born after Shimon married her, not like Rabbi Ishia.
Where's the place, please?
Someone give the place, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Where's the place? Michael, where's the place?
19A3, first column. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
19A3, first column. Bottom of the first column.
Now, remember the author of this opinion is Reb Oishia. Reb Oishia was a Tana. He was a student of Rebbe and he made a Tosefta. Here we're going to bring an Amoira who has the same name, but he's Rav. Rav is from Bavel. Rav Oishia is the title they used in Bavel, and he's asking a question on his namesake, Rebbe Oishia. So even though now Gemara said before Rav Oishia, it's Rebbe Oishia. So it says the Gemara, what do you call it? But furthermore, Mosi Rav Oishia asked the question. Gimelachi with three brothers. It says as follows: there were three brothers. Reuben and Shimon were married to Rachel and Leah. Leah and Rachel. He's Oyisha Bita. Or they were married to a mother and a daughter. Oyisha Bas Bita, or to a mother. One was married to a mother. Was married to a granddaughter from a daughter's side. Oyisha Bas Benor. The idea is that there are two sisters, there are two Yevamis that Levi will not be able to marry both of them because one of them will be the sister or daughter or mother of an Arab. Okay, but they were both married to two different brothers. Reuben married one of them, one sister. She married another sister. Harielu, and then what happened was Reuben and Shimon both died. So what happens now? So now they're coming from two different places. Harielu cholzes. You only give them chalitza, but you don't. There's no yibam here. Why is there no yibam here? Why can't you marry one? Because we learned before that it's called achois kukasa. If Reuben is married to one sister, Shimon to another, Levi cannot marry either one of them because each one of them is the sister of the one that's like your wife. Not really, you didn't marry either of them yet, but there's zakuk. It's bonded to you. It's as if you're marrying the sister one is bonded to you. Same thing over here. So you can't do yibum. On the other hand, you must do chalitza because mahatayra, you're not married to either one of them. You can marry whichever one you want first, and the other one you can't. So therefore, we say that you give chalitza but no yibum. Comes along Rab Shimon, and he says poiter. Rab Shimon says not only are you exempt from yibum, there's no chalitza either. And we'll see later in the Gemara we learn that from a pasuk, but literally there's no chalitza either. So what's our question? Our question is very simple. Now the isak, if you hold. You, Rabbi Oishi, want to say that Shimon believes in the concept of Zika. So that's a very simple question. If you believe in Zika, and you're saying more than that, Zika is as if he's already married. So if Levi was born a week after Reuven died, as if Levi was born after Shimon married her. If you're going to say that Zika goes to that extent, it's as if Shimon married her already. So that's a simple question. Reuven died on Monday and Shimon died on Wednesday. As soon as Reuven died on Monday, she cannot marry Shimon because Shimon is married to her sister. So she is connected to Levi, as if Levi married her already. So what if Shimon dies 2 days later? Levi already married one of the sisters he's allowed to, and let him go ahead with the Yibum. And the other one will be exempt, because it'll be the sister of his wife. Why do we say that neither of them can get married? If you believe in this bond, it's as if already they were married before Shimon's wife died, before Shimon died. So they were already married. You, Rabbi Yishai, want to say that Zika is not just that they're a bond, but as if they was married. And therefore, when Levi was born, it's as if Shimon already married that woman and Levi came in afterwards. So if you're going to go to that extent, same thing over here. Say that Reuben's wife, as soon as Reuben died, was already married to Levi. And then Shimon died later, there's a sister there. Okay, so she's free or whatever. She gets chalitza, but at least he can go ahead and marry Reuben's wife because he's already married to her anyway, in theory. These that attachment means you're married. So let him marry Reuben's wife. And the other one will be actually totally exempt because it's a sister of someone who's married. Rabama says that's not a question because my point you thought that when he says potter, Reb Shimon meant that they're both exempt from yibum and chalitza. No. What he meant potter was he meant Shimon's wife is free. Reuben's wife, Itaka marries. It's Shimon's wife that's free. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? But Tanya says clearly and right, it spells it out. If Shimon Poitim B'Shnei, she says both exempt. Amar Rava says, Rava, you're right. Shniya shebezug zeh v'ashniya shebezug zeh. Rava understood from the Brayso, which the Gemara will say in a minute is a mistake. He thought there were four sets. There were four sets here. Two sisters, a mother and a daughter, a mother and a granddaughter through the daughter, and a mother and granddaughter through the son. So he thought that what happened was there's one of each set was married to Reuben, and one in each set was married to Shimon. So each one had four wives, and they died. So when Shimon says pointed, he said in plural shneim, he meant all of Shimon's wives. There's four of them. All of their wives are exempt because Levi is already attached to all of Reuben's wives. That's what Rava wants to say. So therefore, he is attached. He does believe in the concept of attachment. Says the Gemara, first of all, Rava is mistaken reading the Braisa, because Chada, first of all, the Oy Tani, it says clearly, either he's married to two sisters, or a mother and a daughter, or a mother and granddaughter. Not he was married to all of them, number one. Number two, if Rava is right, then it should have said four, not two. If there are four sets, and you want to say that the second set of four is Pata, you should have said that Pata Barba, all four are Pata. Why did you only nominate two? That's number one. Okay, so therefore, it's clear from here that Shimon does not believe in the concept of bonding, and therefore we have a problem about it. Furthermore, it says clearly that Shimon patas both of them. He clearly spells out both of them, and he gives a reason. Why does he say in that case over there they don't even need chalitza? Why should they have chalitza? Reuben died and Shimon died because of two sisters. And so why doesn't he say, okay, you can't marry them because achos kukasa, but at least give them chalitza? Because he has a pasuk and he learns like this. It says, don't a wife and a woman and her sister do not take litzra. So before we learned down the first page, litzra means that the tzara also that the co-wife is also exempt. He teaches litzra. If both sisters become now attached to one brother, they both have the mitzvah of yibum to one brother, even though they come from two different husbands. They are both exempt from yibum. Because literally, if they both become tsaras to each other, they both become like the rivals in order to marry Levi, then neither of them have the mitzvah of yibum. Elam Rav says, I'll give you another way of learning pshat over here. How come Rav Shimon says they're both potter? Maybe he does believe in yibum. He does believe in zakika, zakuk. So if he believes in zakuk, let's treat as if he's married to Reuven's wife already. But you're right. If, let's say, that Reuven died first, and then Shimon died, so it's as if Reuven's wife was already married to Levi, and no problem. Reuven and Shimon both died. There was an accident. They were both in the car together. They both died at the same moment. And therefore, both women now are available to Levi, can be attached to either one of them. But Rav Shimon told the Amar believes we had a Gemara Sukkah, a big machlekes. Is it possible for two events to happen simultaneously, exactly at the same time? And Rabbi Yisrael says yes. And so is Rav Shimon Yochai. It's possible that Reuben and Shimon died exactly the same second, and that's why Levi is not connected to either one because they are both landed to him at the same moment. Comes along Rav Papa and says everything we discussed till now, Rabbi Yisrael, I totally disagree. And Rav Papa is the way we learned in the first parak, and that is, when does Rav Shimon say that it's not considered an Eishes Ach? Only if he was born physically after Shimon married Reuben's wife. Only after Shimon married Reuben's wife. If he was born before then, he's Asr Eishazach, just like everybody, like the Chacham say. Now Papa said, he's only arguing with Shimon married her and then he was born. And the logic is because when he came to the world, it was Shimon's wife. And Rab Shimon. But if let's say he was born and then Shimon married her, like Paul doesn't argue. Now the two missions we have here are not talking. Rab Shimon is only arguing on the second mission. He's not arguing on the first mission. The first mission is talking about a case where he was born. He was born before Shimon married her. What do you have to say? That mission, everybody agrees. The loizu avzuktani. First, he tells you the smaller chiddush that everybody agrees, and then he tells you in our Mishnah where he was born after Shimon married her, and this is where the argument is. Tanya comes out of Papa, but look actually like a Papa V'Tirta Rav Aisha. We have a question of Aisha. So this Bryce is going to paint a number of scenarios. You just have to hold cup. We'll just follow. Number of scenarios. Scenario number one. Two brothers live together, Reuven and Shimon. The Meis Echem believe Vlad and Reuven don't have any kids. The Omar Hasheni Hazeh, and then Shimon came along, and last is Maimah B'Yivemta. The way we read it right now, it sounds like he intended to give Kedusha to his sister-in-law, but like he speak last about Maimah, it didn't have a chance to do it. It didn't happen. And in the meantime, so a brother was born before Shimon made any overtures, that's what it sounds like, to Reuven's wife. And now suddenly you have a brother was born. V'meis, and then Shimon died. So what happens? Levi is forbidden to marry Reuven's wife. So Reuven's wife had no connection to Shimon, is totally free. But Shimon's wife has a mitzvah yibum with Levi. Either one. Okay, that's scenario number one. Scenario number two, which is broken down into two ways. Asaba Maimer. Shimon went ahead, didn't marry her yet, but he made a Maimer, which with Rabbanan there's a connection. And then Levi was born. They didn't get married yet, just had a Maimer, then Levi was born. Or Levi was born, and then he went ahead and did a Maimer. He did some kind of a ring or something. And then Shimon died. So now with Rabbanan, this woman now is not only connected to Reuven, but connected to Shimon as well. Reuven's wife, the fact is, she still never got married to Shimon, so therefore she cannot have anything to do with Levi because he was born after Reuven died. What about Shnia, the second wife, Shimon's wife? If this is Reuven's wife, then Shnia should not. But there's no yibum there whatsoever. Why? Why is there no yibum there? Because it looks like that she was the co-wife of an Eishes Ach, because they made a Maimer, and therefore she cannot marry, but she still needs a Chalitza because really Mahatayra, Reuven's wife, was not married to Shimon at all. Comes along Rav Shimon, and he says as follows. And the Gemara later on will discuss which case he's arguing on, and we'll say he's arguing on the case where you actually made a Maimer, and you made a Maimer, and then Levi was born. And because Rav Shimon holds that a Maimer, he's questioning, we had before, whether a Maimer completely cements their relationship or does absolutely nothing to their relationship. It's a suffix. So therefore, Rav Shimon will say, if there's bia or chalitza, when it says achazmem, it actually means Shimon's wife, not Reuven's wife who's married to Shimon, Shimon's wife. Then poiteret tzarasa, that will exempt a tzara. Why? Because manushach. If you tell me a Maimer makes a Shimon's wife, so very good. You could do with either one. If you do one of the wives a chalitza or a yibum, the other one is exempt. If Shimon's wife, if Reuven's wife is not Shimon, so Reuven's wife remains Reuven, then she doesn't have the mitzvah of yibum because it's an Eishes Ach Shalai B'Olamai. So manushach, if you have bia with or chalitza with the Shimon's wife, everybody's happy. But chalatz lebalas Maimer, if all you did was with Reuven's wife, and you couldn't have yibum with her, you can only do chalitza because maybe it's Reuven's wife, you're an Eishes Ach, and the Maimer didn't do anything. It doesn't help Shimon's wife at all because maybe the Maimer did nothing. That's Reuven's wife. How do you take care of Shimon's wife? Okay, that's how Gemara explains later. Then the Raisa continues. Next scenario. What about Konsa? Shimon actually married her, and then Rameis, and then Shimon died. And afterwards, only afterwards, was Levi born. So he was born after Shimon already died. Or let's say that Levi was born, but then he married the mace. So according to the Chachamim, according to the Chachamim, even if he was born after Shimon married her, according to Chachamim, it's still Reuben's wife. It's still an Eishes Ach, and if it's an Eishes Ach, then the co-wife also is Potter. Okay, that's case number 4. Konsa, what happens? He married her. The Noiled Le'ach, and the brother was born. The Achakach Mes. So he married her, and then Levi was born while they were married alive, and then Shimon died. There's no difference. Rameir holds, I don't care if he was born during Shimon's lifetime while he was married. As far as Levi is concerned, it's Reuven's wife. It's an Eishes Ach, like the Chacham we had before. Comes along Rav Shimon and says, no. In this case, he was born, Shimon was married to her, it's no longer Reuven's wife, it's Shimon's wife. There's not a moment of Isada, he can marry either one. Now, this last case is talking about he was born while Shimon was married to her. Now you have to wonder, why are we highlighting this particular scenario? According to the Chachamim, it makes no difference when he was born. If he's born before or he's born while Shimon was married. According to Chachamim, Shimon's wife is always Reuben. When Shimon did the Yibum with Reuben's wife, it's always considered Reuben's wife, and it's always Asa. So why did you just bunch it all together? So obviously we're talking to Rav Shimon here, and we're saying according to Rav Shimon, it depends when Levi was born. If Levi was born before Shimon married her, I agree with the Chachamim that it's Asa. If Levi was born after Shimon married her, that's called an Eishes. That is perfectly permitted. So it's clear that Papa's view that Rav Shimon is only arguing the case where he was born after Shimon married her. So when he was born, there was no Reuben on the scene, there was no Isser whatsoever, everything was all right. So that's what we're saying here. This case over here, who's he learning it to? Like who's the Chachamim? Let's analyze this. Makes absolutely no difference whether he married, Shimon married, and then he was born, whether Levi was born and then Shimon got married, makes no difference because he holds it's always forbidden. It's always Reuven's wife. No, if so, mix all the cases together, all the scenarios together, and just say, Aser. Simple as that. Rav Shimon. We're focusing on Rav Shimon, and we're making a distinction. The only time Rav Shimon argues is if Shimon married her and then the kid was born. Oh, Rav Shimon says he came at a time when it's heter, he's all right. But if he was born before they got married, I agree with the Chachamim that it's awesome. Shema Mina, conclusive proof that the Papa is right and is wrong. Let's analyze the Brisa. You said, Shimon got up, he intended to give Kedushin to this sister-in-law. But his big last is and didn't have a chance to do it until Levi was born. So what do you mean he intended? What's the value of intention? Either he did or he didn't. But Macy died. And it said there, the fact is he didn't marry her yet, so therefore Levi asks her and she's not permitted to the whole world. And the second one is Shimon's wife. Let's understand. My Amad and my lawyer, he speak. What do you mean he stood up to do it, but didn't do it? Did he do it? He did it. If he didn't do it, he didn't do it. What does it mean? So Gemara explains. Interesting. He intended to do it willingly, and initially probably she sort of accepted and was interested. But by the time later on she had cold feet. He then he forced himself. Now what it means is as follows: in the din of Yevamos, different than an ordinary marriage. In ordinary marriage, two strangers, the only way you can have Kedushin is if both parties agree. You can't force it on either one. Actually, I take it back. You can't force her. Regarding him, there's a big machlekes Rishayim. You definitely can't force her. But when it comes to Yibum, the Taita forced it. The Taita said, this is it. She has no choice. So if he goes ahead and has marital relations with her, then she's married whether she likes or not. And if they want to part, needs a proper divorce. So the question is, what about if he gave her Kedushin against her will? There's 5 brothers and he wants to marry her more than other ones, or he wants to marry, get ahead. So therefore he jumps in and gives a Kedushin against her will. She's not interested in him. She wants one of the other brothers. What happens then? So that's the machlekes here. That's what he means here. He wanted to, but didn't happen. What do you mean didn't happen? He did give a kedushin, but against her will. And the question is, does it have any value or not? With the like Rebbe, this does not follow. It has no value. Why? Because we're not following Rebbe. Tanya, if somebody goes against coerces her, Rebbe says yes, it's a valid condition. Just like the bia is. Chacham say like kana, it's not a valid condition. What's going on? In my time of the Rebbe, he compares it to bia by Yevama. Ma bia Yevama bal korcha. Bia by Yevama is against the will. Av kedushin Yevama bal korcha. So to kedushin of Yevama is bal korcha. But Rabbanan gami mi kedushin. Rabbanan learns kedushin dalma. Ma kedushin da alma. Just like kedushin generally medaita. Just like kedushin generally is willingly. Av kedushin the Yevama medaita. So too by just like kedushin. Where else is kedushin work? By ordinary woman. So by Yevama also kedushin has to be only if it's the willing partners. So you want to make him here. What's the crux of the argument? Matters of Yevama, you should learn from Yevama. And the other one says no. That things to do with kedushin, you have to learn kedushin over the melech. So also, okay, the next case it says in the bottom of the page before, also if Shimon went ahead and gave her a maimah kedushin, that's case number one, and brother was born after he did the maimah. Or the brother was born before the maimah, and then he did a maimah. The mace, and then Shimon died, so therefore it's still considered Reuben's wife. She's Reuben's wife, so therefore she's also to Levi, she's free. And Shnia, but the second one, Chayletzes, only receives Chalitza, because not Yibum. Why? Because it looks like she is the co-wife of someone that's Asr, because there was a Maimer done. Rav Shimon, in one of the cases at least, and I'm sorry, in both cases, Rav Shimon says, "Bi asa chalitza shel achazman." The bi chalitza of Achaz, which is the second wife, Shimon's wife, poiteret tzarasa, exempts also the co-wife. Rav Shimon haikoy. On which case is Rav Shimon referring to? Which case is the argument? Is the argument the case of noidel ach? A brother was born, and then afterwards they made his overtures. Didn't we just say a minute ago that everyone agrees, that Shimon agrees that if he was born before any ties to Shimon, she's awesome. Doesn't argue. Must be on the other case. Shimon made a maimon, and then he was born, and now there's a suffix. The suffix is if the maimon is conclusive, cements the relationship, then became Shimon's wife. It became Shimon's wife, then okay, then he can go ahead and marry either one. But what happens if the Maimah did nothing? Then it's really Reuben's wife. So therefore, if it's Reuben's wife, then Shimon's wife is the one who's chayiv in Yibum, not Reuben's wife. So therefore, Rab Shimon says, just do Yibum on Shimon's wife, and Manashich, it's all right. Then you say, but Cholos Abal's Maimah, if you give Chalitza to Reuben's wife, doesn't help Shimon's wife, because maybe she never got married to Shimon. Maybe Maimah did nothing. My time we shouldn't have it. Badai. She's definitely Reuben's wife. Ubala's Maimah Suffolk. Whether she also became Shimon's wife or not, we're not sure. Therefore, you have to do that. Yosef Rab Nasha Bazvi Kamer Rabhuna. Rab Nasha Bazvi said, Rabhuna, Yosef come, he said, my time with Rab Shimon. What's the logic of Rab Shimon? So, my time with Rab Shimon, we know his logic. Kidama time, he said 100 times. Levi was born, Shimon was already married to her, so therefore it was never a time of Isser, because Shimon is not happily married with Reuben's wife, and now Shimon's wife. No Isser. You're right. My time with the Rabbanan. Why did the Rabbanan argue? They say it's still considered an Eichazach. Why is it still considered Reuben's wife? It says in the passage, you should take as a wife the Yibma. We know we're talking about Yevama. Why does the Torah say the Yibma? To tell you, Adayin Yevama Rishaynalah, that she's still Reuben's wife. Even though Shimon now is married to her, it's Reuben's wife. We learn that from the word the Yibma. And that's why they say, even if it was born afterwards, it's forbidden. Says Gemara, okay, let me ask a question. How time we learn, Kamsa, if Shimon married this woman, had a kish, the Chodav is completely, they're now like a married couple. In what sense? I'm going to be saying teach you two things. If Shimon, let's say, it doesn't work out with his sister-in-law, just gives her a get. Doesn't have to give her chalitza anymore. Why not give her chalitza? Because it became his wife, number one. Number two, umachzira. If tomorrow he changes his mind, he wants her back, he could take her back. It's a sister-in-law, it's forbidden. You had a mitzvah yibum and that you did already. No, because now it became his wife. So how come? Hasanami lema v'yibma. Why do you say, look, a daini woman is Shemala, she's still Reuben's wife, still a Yevamos, and if you want to divorce her, you have to give her chalitza just as well. Why not? And you cannot take her back. With the boy chalitza, says the Gemara, shiny hasam damakro. In the very same pasuk, it says, "V'lok chaloi isha." They should take her as a wife. So we have two parts of the pasuk. One part of the pasuk says that she's completely your wife, and the other part of the pasuk says she still remains a Yevama. So if right now you're focusing as completely your wife, Hachanami, say same over here, Shimon married completely your wife. So Levi was born afterwards, he's marrying Shimon's wife. So the Yibma is still a Yavam. So Mara is, how do you know which way to go? How do you know which way to say it's still a Yavam? And when do we say, no, it's completely his wife? Says the Gemara, Mistabed, it makes sense. Shadi had Teda. The Teda came along and said, you're allowed to marry your sister-in-law, even though it's forbidden because of the mitzvah of Yibum. So therefore, we're going to say, let's add the het to V'lok Isha that she's now completely your wife. When the Teda says that a brother-in-law, a brother wasn't around at the time, brother-in-law who wasn't around at the time when Reuben died is forbidden. And then the Teda of Yibum, there's more Isser, obviously will compound the Isser of your brother-in-law. The Shadi Yisura. Says the Gemara, let's just finish the Mishnah because that's where we finished with the Mizrahi today. Or Rav Shimon Damar says, what Rav Shimon's logic? Since you found him at a moment of heter, he said it was not a moment of Isser, therefore permitted. I have a very interesting question. What happens if you have a sister, let's say Levi, but he wasn't born yet. He has a sister shares the same mother, not the same father, and he has a brother that shares the same father but not a mother. So, and that brother of his that brother married his sister. They're not related at all. They married each other. So when he was born, Levi was born, they were married legally. So now that his brother died, he should be able to marry his sister. Because when he was born, they were legally married. You tell me if they're legally married, he steps in. That's what Avshim said, didn't he? His sister was mother's side, his brother and father's side. And then Levi was born, but Mason, then Shimon died. Let him marry his sister. When he was born, they were living together legally. So what are you talking about? Still a sister. How can he marry? Just because she's married happily with his brother, but they're legally married. For you, it's forbidden. So he said, "No, send over here then. Who cares if Shimon married Reuben's wife? They were legally married. But you are an H. You were not around when Reuben died, so you're an H. So Gemara says, "What are you talking about? How you suited the less later. The Easter of marrying your sister. There's no ever extenuation they allowed to marry your sister. So of course it's forbidden. How you suited the Easter later. But your brother's wife, you're not allowed to marry. But if he dies childless, you are allowed to marry." So therefore, the Torah took the Easter away, and we'll take it away in this case as well. Okay, we'll stop here. Everyone should have a Shavuot Tov. So next Motzei Shabbos, we'll put on